Hi, my name is Lydia Kasopoulos, and I'm a strategy and emerging technologies advisor with a deep passion for body data tracking and human performance. This set of healthy aging protocol interviews delves into meaningful human connection. I'll be asking people what is meaningful to them in relation to human connection and how they go about cultivating meaningful connection as part of their personal healthy aging protocol. I hope you find this to be of interest. Thank you so much, Farzana, for joining me for this conversation about healthy aging protocols and meaningful human connection.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this talk.
So why don't we start with an introduction? If you could just introduce yourself, tell us all things about Farzana.
So I'm a dog lover, as you can tell from my lovely little dog Dante behind. So I live in London and I run a strategy and communications firm. We work across government, corporate, culture, and charities. It tends to be a very fast-paced industry, working in public relations. And so, a lot of long hours and lots of traveling around the world, which actually I love what I do. So it's not such a thing for me. And I am 46 years old. So I'm at this sort of pivotal stage in my life where, things are all changing biologically and getting to grips with perimenopause. So really welcome this conversation.
Thank you so much. So why don't we start with your healthy aging protocol? What is it?
Gosh, well, I think first of all, it starts with awareness about aging and acceptance as well. Not trying to fight aging, but understanding what happens to the body, what happens to the mind, and then, being prepared. So I would say what I used to always do is have such an unhealthy diet. And, I was sort of brought up on sort of McDonald's and Nando's and pizza and God knows what. And so I've made a really strong effort in order to eat healthy, cut down on meat, and just remember to hydrate. So I think, a lot of sort of, healthy aging protocols is really common sense that we all know, but we can't be bothered to do. And so, what I'm trying to do is eat healthy and most importantly, sleep as well. So I've got this wonderful tracker called Whoop, and it basically, analyzes my sleep quality, because it's not just about the hours that you sleep, it's about the consistent sleep times and wake up times. And then I really look at my sort of REM sleep and my slow wave movement sleep to sort of try and understand what are the triggers behind what helps me sleep better. And so alcohol is one area that massively impacts sleep in a negative way. So I have really reduced alcohol to the absolute bare minimum, like a sort of a treat when I'm on holiday or a weekend. And so I think, reducing alcohol, eating healthy, and walks in the park in nature, that really helps me, and building time in my day for meditation.
Well, it sounds like your healthy aging protocol is really based on a strong degree of self-awareness, because you're like coming back and forth in this conversation with yourself and saying, okay, well, how's my body feeling? And now you're also incorporating wearable data. And so, yeah, that's wonderful. And so I look forward to now hearing more about your meaningful human connection. We know that healthy aging has many factors, and one which all longevity scientists agree on is that you need to have people in your life. And so I wanted to first hear, what does meaningful mean to you in terms of meaningful human connection?
I think it's really to have relationships with people, whether you know them well or not, that are rooted in authenticity. And often we feel the burden of having to carry a mask, not bring our sort of true self to the relationship. And I think that takes a massive toll on the body, not only sort of psychologically, but I think it also shows up physically. And it's really about choosing people. And I think that's really important, is the word choose, that you don't have to accept the people in your life. And obviously, to a certain extent, if it's your in-laws or that you don't particularly get on with, or, some colleagues you don't, you've got limited freedom in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, if you're working in a really toxic environment, you don't like your boss, you don't like your colleagues, you don't like the values of the organization, you should, I would argue that if it's possible, to leave and find other pastures, because the people that you work with the people that your friends, your family, they have a huge impact upon your well-being. And you could eat as healthy as you want, sleep as well as you want, but if you're around relationships that are draining, and that create some form of sort of dissonance in you, then they're just not going to be good for your health, your mental and physical health. So what I try and do is put myself in situations where the people that I'll be surrounded by would be people that have shared values, that, you know, people that I respect and I admire, and people that I feel have got my back.
It sounds almost so simple hearing you say that, and so powerful at the same time. So when you talk about being authentic and that meaningful to you is being in authenticity, could you describe that? Like, what does that look like?
So, for instance, running a client services, business, we really analyze the clients coming in. And before, it would be a question of, the client needs our services, sort of cab rank principle, sure, sign the contract, let's start working. But actually now what we do is we analyze all of the leads coming in to see whether or not our values are aligned. Mm-hmm. We look at their behavior pre-contract to see, are they respectful? Are they kind? Are they professional? Are they realistic? And are they the sort of people that would want to work with, to partner with? And so I think that's quite a big paradigm shift, especially for a services industry, is moving away from, we'll work with anybody, to actually consciously choosing clients and understanding that the impact that it makes on the entire organization and the self by bringing in the wrong type of client. And so I think, that is just one example of how you can be a gatekeeper to the people. Now, of course, not everybody has the opportunity to choose which clients that they work with. But what you can do if you're working in an organization is you can vote with your feet, work with an organization and people who you feel aligned to. And I do a lot of work in internal communications with agencies, with companies. And what's really interesting is that you're not going to have a company that is perfect for everyone. Mm-hmm. And what's really important is for those organizations to really clearly, coherently communicate, instead of generically communicating, what their vision, mission, values are and their sort of employee value proposition. So you put a real clear signal out to people that this is who we are, this is what we stand for. And so when people join, they join consciously and intentionally, and then that has an impact. I think the problem that we have in this world is a lot of people use sort of generic phrases that aren't actually true. And there's a massive authenticity gap between the way companies communicate who they are and what their culture really is and what the reality is. And then consequently, you attract people that are the wrong fit. And then, that inevitably leads to poorer outcomes in terms of the health and well-being of employees.
I mean, it's very profound when you say that, because when we think about work, we don't always think about our health. And the two are completely combined because we spend so much time of our life at work. And for you as a business owner, I can see how you have woven this as part of your healthy aging protocol and how you look for authenticity and meaning inside your work, but you're also looking out for your employees. And so that's thank you for unpacking this kind of work health example. And then in your personal life, I know that you also find meaning in engaging with strangers. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, reading and watching so much about sort of, all these wonderful documentaries about longevity, and what comes up time and time again is the ability to have conversations with people and connections. And it doesn't have to be your best friend or, your partner. What's extraordinary is how transformative it is to one's mental health and longevity if you have conversations with people, with strangers. And I've always been generally quite a chatty person and quite an open person. And often I find I have the most illuminating conversations with strangers. And our connection will be fleeting. We may be on a plane next to each other. We may be waiting for a train. I often take cabs, and, the cab drivers and I often have the most incredible conversations. And it's usually incredible because what happens is that there's no sort of ulterior motive. It is a fleeting chance connection between strangers. We're not going to see each other again, likely, and we don't have any strings that bind us. And that actually is incredibly liberating for a very true, authentic conversation where you feel you can talk openly without there being any sort of like, boomerang effect to your words. And I really massively encourage, because I've just had people open up to me with the most incredible stories. And you could be vulnerable with strangers in a way that you can't be with, other people in your life because you fear the repercussions or you fear being judged.
Yeah, being able to be yourself and just speak your mind is pretty powerful and important. So if I were to capture kind of what's meaningful to you in human connection, it's really about being yourself and being able to show up as yourself and express yourself. Now, how do you go about that? Let's go to the applied part. So we know what's meaningful to you, but now how do you apply that? You talked about in an organization how you apply it, but now in your day-to-day life, building, nourishing, and maintaining these meaningful human connections. So it's not just about identifying like this works for me, this doesn't, but now it's like this long-term perspective. How do you go about that?
So first of all, I really try to be aware of how I'm feeling before I meet someone, whilst I'm with them, and immediately after the meeting. And I really try and figure out how do they make me feel? And if you end up feeling very stressed and very anxious, or, your self-esteem plummets, I think that your sort of physical body, as well as your emotions, they signal to you messages about people. We often bury our gut instinct about people and our intuition. And I'm not saying gut instinct and intuition is always right, because it isn't. Sometimes it just could be the sort of stereotypical statistical probability of your brain kind of coming up with ideas about people that can, lead to all sorts of sort of discriminatory thought. What I just try and do is I try and be still and to tune into myself, to try and understand how I feel about these people, about the people that I'm engaging with. And then very simply, if I and I don't sort of cut them off straight away, what I try and do is sort of give a few chances. And then, if I feel as if, that person is just consistently a negative impact upon the way that I feel about myself, or, then I just give them a wide berth. I keep my sort of my circle quite small, because what I find is actually when you're with people that you feel really accept you and you don't have to put on an act, it's so heartwarming to find those people and to be around them. I think friends that, that really accept you for who you are, it's a real blessing in life. And I think the reality is that most people can only count on one hand, how many of those people are in their life. But that's what I do. I sort of, and I'm also not somebody who is closed to new people. I'm always open to new people. There's some people who are like, well, I've known my friends for like 20, 30 years. I'm not going to, I don't need any new friends. I'm always on the lookout. I'm always open. For me, it's not about longevity, although that does have a beauty in itself, because they've known so many different versions of you. For me, it's really about that connection. And also some people can be incredible for you, for a time in your life, and then actually not a good fit. And through guilt, you drag them onto your present, when actually some relationships should sit in the past. And just having that ability to prune your world, like you would as if you were a gardener, and to understand that, relationships are not static. They're in flux. You're changing, other people are changing, and that sort of connection that you have evolves over time.
Absolutely, and so eloquently put. So you said that you're always open to meeting new people, and there are many longevity books out there that say that if you're going to live a 100-year life, you're going to need to get good at building new relationships. So right now, in this phase in your life, for example, what are the new people that you are actively seeking out? Is there a type, or are you just like looking for a connection, or is there a specific kind of interest you have that you want to explore and you're seeking other people? How does that work?
I live by the mantra of follow your curiosity.
Mm.
And so I let my curiosity be my guide. And instead of sort of, putting people into boxes and say, well, I want to meet more people like this or more people like that, what I try and do is just use my curiosity as a guide. And if I'm interested in that person, and I'm curious about that person, about what they say, what they do, how they think, how they make me feel, then I try and engage with them more and want them more in my life. So often I'm driven by curiosity.
What a simple, easy answer right there. So there's something you said that I want to pull the thread on. So you told me in a conversation once that people should earn the privilege to be part of your life. And I would love it if you could just kind of expand on that. Like, how did you get to that? Tell me more about that.
Sure. I think I've always been a people pleaser. And, and there's obviously many sort of underlying reasons for that. And I think it carries with it a burden of being guilty and not wanting to let go of people, even if they're not good for you. And it's taken me a really long time to actually have the confidence and the bravery to prune my network and to remove people from my life if they do not serve me well. And the connection that we have with each other is not a positive one. And so what I believe that people should earn the privilege of being in your life, like I should earn the privilege of being in other people's lives. So it's very much a two-way dynamic. And if people are taking you for granted, a one-way street, then you really kind of should question why they're in your life and not be afraid of removing them from your life and just having that approach to constantly pruning people, because they often say that you are the amalgamation of 6 of the most closest people to you. And if you're not proactively choosing those 6 people, that becomes in a way your life team. And that becomes your sort of team that energizes you or drains you, that uplifts you or pushes you down. And I think it has a huge impact upon your life and your life's trajectory. So I think you should always question, who are these people that you spend most of your time with, and question, have they earned the right to be there, or are they just there because they're a blood connection, or are they there for, because of guilt? So it's really about questioning those people's right to be in your life and understanding the huge impact it has on your life. And if you really if you believe in agency and you believe that you have the power to shape your life, then you have to take the responsibility of making sure that you consciously, intentionally, and proactively decide who's in your inner circle, because they are the ones that shape you as much as you think you shape your own life.
Yes, it's like that expression that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's all about being very intentional, is what I'm hearing. And you are quite intentional about it, and you're self-aware. And I couldn't agree more that definitely it has an impact on our life. So now I want to get to the very kind of super applied practical side. You've described yourself as time poor, and I would say that many people in this day and age are time poor. So you know what's meaningful to you. You pick and choose and select. You follow your curiosity, and you engage with people. But now let's talk about the reality of modern life and being time poor. So how do you go about those people that you've chosen and want to cultivate a special relationship with them? How do you deal with being time poor, but also making time for those who matter to you and make you feel good?
I think it's really hard, actually, when you're time poor. So when you're time poor, you have to have a very strong sense of boundaries and be, again, very intentional about how you spend your time, who you spend your time with. And so, so for instance, I love to sort of mentor. I absolutely love it. I've had the most incredible people in my life that have helped me in my journey. But the reality is I don't have the time to mentor in a meaningful way. And so when you get the requests in, I'm very straight and say, I've got time, I'm time poor. It's not right for this stage in my life, because this stage of my life, my priority is my family. And And then, what I try and do is be very clear that there's a number of things I want to do in my life. And what you have to kind of do is look at your life in different stages and know that what you say no to today, although it's something you want to do, like mentoring, it's something that you can park for a later stage in your life when, that my daughter's grown up and needs me less, for instance, or, there's elderly parents indoors, or parents that don't need you anymore in 5-10 years or whatever. So I think it's about kind of like, you want to do so much in your life, but understand that what you want to achieve in your life and do in your life and give in your life doesn't have to necessarily be all at the same time, and to kind of look at your life through phases. And they often say that, I'm in my late 40s, that this is the rush hour of your life because you're juggling, because, so many of us are juggling, being caregivers, not only in terms of children, but elderly parents, but also being at the peak of your career. And so, for those of us who are, very sort of minded in terms of wanting to give back at the same time, that may not be necessary, that may not be possible, and you don't want to burn yourself out. So I would say it's about boundaries and also about understanding that different areas of your life will flourish in different stages of your life. And there is this principle in the garden design of Islamic gardens, and it's called Char Bagh, which is 4 gardens. And it's basically, if you see the design of gardens, is this beautiful rectangle, and it has 4 compartments of sort of gardens, and there's that water running across. And it basically has, one for, and they say sort of, the philosophy behind it is one is for work, one is for kind of giving back community, one is your spiritual life, one is, your family life. And it's about having balance between all 4 of them. And I think that is one of the biggest struggles, is how do you have balance so that you're not just a workaholic and then, your family relationships dissipate, or you're just family and work and you've got no spiritual life or no community connection. So I think it's about having that sort of balance. So what I tend to do with that philosophy in mind of Islamic gardens and balance, what I do is I color code my diary in my calendar for these different parts of my life. And then I look at it every Sunday, and I look at my week gone by, and I look at my week going forward, and I look to see, are the colors in balance? Are they in harmony? Is it too heavy on the blue, which is work? Is it too light on the yellow, which is family? And I look at that to see which colors are dominating, and are they dominating for months on end? And if so, can I proactively carve out some time on the other colors, the other areas of my life, in order to have that balance? So I think balance and being conscious of it and using applied techniques like I just suggested kind of helps me stay on course. And also kind of understanding that you're not going to get this perfect balance because of the stage of your life. And, some of those different components of your life will have to be, when you're retired or you start working part-time and so forth.
That's such a wonderful example. I'm going to look up the Islamic gardens. That sounds lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your perspectives on healthy aging, your protocol, what you think is meaningful, how you're so intentional. I think the viewers will find this to be absolutely delightful. So thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
This series is meant to capture personal stories of individual healthy aging protocols and is for informational purposes only, and it does not constitute providing medical advice or professional services. Those seeking personal medical advice should consult with a licensed healthcare practitioner.